Good evening. There was an extraordinary decision today in a case that could affect the way police do their jobs all across the country. A court ruled in favor of a rape victim who had brought a lawsuit against Toronto police for not warning her of the danger she was in. They never told her about a number of rapes which had taken place near her home. The court had some incredibly harsh words for the way the police handled the situation. It found the police had utterly failed in their duty to protect women from the rapist by not giving them the chance to protect themselves. More on this landmark ruling from CTV's Robert McArthur.
They're drinking to what some call overdue justice in this downtown Toronto neighborhood. 12 years ago, a man known as the Balcony Rapist attacked women here. His last victim sued the Toronto Police Service for not warning that a serial rapist was stalking her street. It took a decade to win the case.
I was incredibly surprised and incredibly pleased when I heard the decision. It was not the one that I was expecting.
We can't show you the woman, known only as Jane Doe. She argued police used her as bait to catch serial rapist Paul Douglas Callow, now serving a 20-year sentence. In her ruling, Madam Justice Jean McFarlane agreed police violated Doe's charter rights, slamming the force as irresponsible and grossly negligent for sexist, stereotypical reasoning. Officers assumed that if women were warned about the rapist, their hysterical response would warn him off. She awarded Doe $220,000 in damages.
I have been a member of this service for 27 years, and I've never seen anything like this before.
They failed miserably in their duty to uphold women's charter equality rights and women's right to security of the person. And I think that that does set a precedent.
Jane Doe's lawyers believe the ruling affects police across the country.
A police service in Canada today, after this decision has come down, would be foolhardy and would be exposing the taxpayers to potentially severe consequences and liability if the police did not stop to examine their policies and practices and to make sure that the effect of their policies and practices were not discriminatory.
Feminists call this a major victory for women, but the implications are much broader.
I think it opens the doors for groups that are fighting homophobic violence, issues of ageism, ableism, class, race issues to do with our interaction with the police, to also use the courts to seek justice.
Toronto police have developed new policies since the rapes in 1986, but this ruling goes beyond many of those changes. The city may appeal to a higher court. A decision is expected within a week. If it comes to that, Jane Doe says she's willing to fight on. Robert McArthur, CTV News, Toronto.
And with me to talk about today's major development, Toronto criminal lawyer Karen McArthur.
Hi.
Ms. McArthur, how will police forces all across the country now have to accommodate this particular decision?
Well, I think they're going to be obliged to warn communities about dangers lurking out there, but at the same time, they're going to have to consider, I think with legal advice, the rights of the perpetrators that they are attempting to apprehend, because they have privacy interests protected underneath the charter. So that they'll have to warn the community, but, for example, not have widespread dissemination of the name of the proposed suspect or the perpetrator.
Tight line for them to walk then. Now,
Tightrope.
police allege that in this case, there was plenty of information in the mass media about a serial rapist being on the loose, so why tie their hands this way? That's what they contend.
Creative defense, probably dreamt up by a high-paid-for lawyer, but not appropriate. What do we pay police forces for with our hard-earned tax dollars? We pay them to warn the community and to help effectively police the community. While we might have the media does some of that, it's not their job, and that's not what our tax dollars are directed for. So just a creative defense.
What did Jane Doe mean when she said she saw this case, the way the police handled it, as systemic sexism?
She meant that the police officers viewed the women in this downtown Toronto community as potential hysterics, sort of an outdated view of women, that if they were warned about there being a serial rapist in their community, that they would be all up in arms and act like a bunch of giggling schoolgirls or hysterical schoolgirls and chase the guy away, and then the police wouldn't be able to get their man. So at the expense of women's security interests, their lives, they made good on their chase for the man. Bad decision.
Old-fashioned paternalism, then.
Exactly.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.